meeting. We do meet here every Friday from 5 until 7 p.m. And what we try to do as Australians from all walks of life is to share with you what's been happening to another Australian, acclaimed journalist, publisher, editor of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. And my friend Karen just put us up to date with what's happened to Julian. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about his case from the point of view of lawyers and the law. As you know, Julian Assange is in a prison in London simply because the US wants to extradite him to the US. That is the only reason. There are no charges in the UK against Julian Assange, but nonetheless, he is in a high security prison in London. I'm sorry to bore you a little bit, but this is a legal matter, so I'm going to talk to you about legal issues. And the most important thing we've seen is that lawyers from around the world support the release and the freedom and the dropping of charges against Julian Assange. And this is known to our government. Our government is fully aware that lawyers internationally have said this is a very bad extradition request. So I'm going to talk to you about that. This is a letter, and I will only read some extracts from this letter from Lawyers for Assange. They are an international group of independent lawyers and legal academics. They have been following the proceedings in the case of Julian Assange, and they have observed gross violations of Julian's due process rights during this time, as well as his gross violation of Julian Assange's right to health, right to life, and right to be free from torture. These lawyers and academics are also very concerned about the wider implications of this prosecution for freedom of expression and freedom of the press. They are the cornerstones of democracy. Our democracy as we know it is based on freedom of the press, freedom of expression. And this is an attack on those fundamental values. Now, Julian Assange is supported by over 170 eminent legal professionals and lawyers associations. That's a lot of people behind him, a lot of people who are supporting Julian Assange. And again, our government knows that, but does nothing about it. These 170 associations of lawyers, they are all from around the world, including Australia. And they have presented their concerns to the English authorities. And they have also called for an immediate end to the extradition proceedings and for the immediate release of Mr. Assange. This letter and the extracts that I'm going to read to you have been endorsed by hundreds of eminent political figures around the world, including Australians, hundreds of people, including heads of state, ministers and diplomats. We are not talking only about citizens like us, we are talking about world leaders who are supporting the release of Julian Assange. And the letter says, and it's addressed to the Prime Minister of England, Mr. Boris Johnson. We write to you as legal practitioners and legal academics to express our collective concerns about the violations of Mr. Julian Assange's fundamental civil, human and political rights and the awful precedent his persecution is setting. This is not just a prosecution, this is a persecution that has been going on for over 10 years of one individual, of one Australian, Julian Assange. The lawyers call on Prime Minister Johnson to act in accordance with national and international law, human rights and the rule of law by bringing an end to these ongoing extradition proceedings. They want Julian Assange to be free from torture, free from arbitrary detention and deprivation of liberty and political persecution, We want Julian Assange to be released and brought back home. We want Julian Assange back in Australia with his family, with his kids. That